Here's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, either do I.
1, 2, 3, set, go.
You are tuned in to the Power Chord Hour right here on 107.9 WRFA, as well as the Power Chord Hour podcast. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, however you were checking this out, thank you for checking this out. I'm your host, Anthony Merchant. We're back this week with another one for you. I'm very excited to be talking to Popeye and Garrett of Calling Hours. You may also know Popeye from Farside. They have a new record, Say Less, which is out now on Revelation Records. I don't know. You're in that, like, you are still a new band, but also like newish. I mean, you have the new album out. You guys are playing a little while, but I can't wait to talk new music, learn a little more about Calling Hours and all that with Popeye and Garrett. So guys, how you doing?
Great, man. Thanks for having us on, Anthony.
Doing great, Anthony. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's get into this. Like I just mentioned, I mean, Calling Hours, new band, but I know it's been, I believe, like a year or so. So I mean, you got a little bit under your belt. But how long has Calling Hours been a band now? Take us back. How long have you guys been together now for?
Has it been like 2.5 years?
I
remember the night that we met. I just can't remember. It was New Year's Day,
right?
But I don't remember what year.
Probably 2022. Yeah, so it's been like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. And now
sounds about right.
But we played our first show in May, just over a year ago. May 2023 was our first show.
Yeah, so I suppose the drunken inception of the band between there and when we actually like started doing something like legitimately as a band. Yeah, there was that took a little while. It was like at least 6 months before we started like doing things, and then longer. Well, and I mean, like when we started demoing songs, and then after that, like, yeah, it was the building process took a while, and then we actually started like playing shows, and then yeah, I'm already rambling. We just started like 5 seconds ago, and I'm already going off on.
I like rambling on this. There's no time limit. Ramble away. I like hearing this stuff.
Oh, good. I hope you cleared your schedule for the rest of the day.
It kind of goes into the question I was going to ask too, like with how, like you were saying, there's like the beginning of the band where it's like talking about it, and then there's like really kind of starting things. Like, did either of you, like, how much of a thought of what Calling Hours was going to sound like and everything was there? Like, was this an idea like those drunken talks and stuff where like you really kind of knew what you wanted the band to sound like, or what you wanted out of this? Or is it more of just like, hey, we got all these guys, let's play together, and the sound just kind of starts forming from bashing it out? I mean, was it realized at much at all in that kind of phase in between thinking about it and playing, or did that just kind of come from playing?
I can take that question. So
yeah,
I
you're
would
taking
say
that question.
I have like a couple of ways to answer that. One is the first time we played together as a band, we were basically Popeye's backing band for a solo acoustic show he was doing. And so we were planning that, and Popeye and I had a phone before we met in person. We had a phone call, and we kind of just went through, and we decided we were going to play a bunch of cover songs. We were going to do a couple Farside songs and then a handful of cover songs. And the cover songs we did was like The Clash, Youth of Today, Gin Blossoms. Who else did we do in there?
Oh, we did 7 Seconds.
7 Seconds. Did we do a Lemonhead song?
Lemonhead song, yeah.
So it was kind of, and I think in a real way, like that combination of bands that we covered that night, the first time we really all ever met as a band, was a little bit of a roadmap for what Calling Hours would become. Kind of a mix of all that, and obviously, if you're a fan of Farside, you're going to hear some familiar sounds in there as well, especially with Popeye's voice. But that was a part of things. And then when we started demoing songs, we worked with Brian McTernan, who's a close friend of ours and a genius producer. And he really sat down with us ahead of time and said, I think you guys need to kind of figure out what you're going to be and, come up with a direction. And he was like, I don't think you guys should be Farside, version 2. Like, you really need to find your own. sound. And so that was, it was kind of nice to start sort of like a de novo band where you really where you do kind of come up with a direction. And for us as the, not as the non-singers, as the people who are playing the instruments, our goal was to really have like write songs that were a platform for Popeye's voice, and just whatever that meant, just kind of give him space to do his thing. Cause we all were huge fans of him as a singer, and we wanted to like give him songs that he could really like, give him songs that he would allow him to really like, highlight or spotlight his, his incredible voice. So that's where our sound came from.
Get this man some songs.
I mean, those covers, those artists you mentioned, I do feel like I hear them within calling hours. Like it does make sense. The names I'm like, oh yeah, I hear that and that, which I like. Cause I also got to say, I like that I hear like 7 seconds, but I also hear like the Lemonheads and the Gin Blossoms. Like I hear, which I love both sides of the spectrum. I mean, you have the Replacements cover on there. They're my all-time favorite band. Like I like that you got a little bit, you have, for me personally, like every kind of end of the spectrum, I feel like you hit. So for me personally, you hit it all.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for saying that.
Well, the other thing I wanted to add to that was, Garrett, that was really well put, by the way. But give a compliment when a compliment is due. That was really well spoken. The other thing is that first night that we played together, and we weren't a band yet. This is where the drunken conversation comes in, because that was the first night I had met all those guys in person, and we had a blast on stage. And afterwards we were just like kind of just getting to know each other a little bit and having some drinks and just kind of hanging out and talking at the venue. And I remember speaking to Tom McGrath, our lead guitar player, and I just said, so you guys doing anything? And I had heard talk that you guys like to get together and just play every once in a while and write music. And so I was asking him, like, are you doing anything? What does it sound like? And he said, that's kind of like a post-punk, post-hardcore kind of thing. We haven't found a singer yet. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing anything. Can I try out? And they already had it was like probably the next day, like I got like this flood of emails with all of these basement recordings that they had already done. And so to say how we developed our sound, that to me was definitely the springboard, because they already had a ton of material. So I was just trying to figure out, like, okay, I got to figure out I hadn't written lyrics in a really long time or sang any new material. So there was always, in my mind, there was always a foundation there to like start with. And then, as Garrett mentioned, once we started working with Brian McTernan, he was able to kind of reel us in a little bit. And he's had such a humongous part of the development of this band. Like he's like we're I dare say kind of dependent on him, but because he's so brilliant and we've built this level of trust with him that it's so great working with him. And he's can't say enough about that guy.
He's done some amazing records too. That guy has a nice he's done quite a few cool things in his career. Not a bad guy to have on your side.
Just a couple of things, yeah. He's done all right.
Like for you, because I was going to ask that, like, if you guys kind of all knew each other beforehand, and obviously Popeye, like you just said, you didn't really know the other guys. Garrett, by the sounds of it, you kind of are already playing with everyone else in calling hours, right? I mean, it sounds like you kind of already knew the other guys. You knew them musically, you played with them and stuff before.
It's been a kind of a long history. Tom and Tony, our two guitarists, have been playing in bands together for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Jim, our drummer, and I played in a band together in high school. So we've known each other for a very long time. But we have another band called Don't Sleep. That's sort of more of
a. Oh yeah, I know Don't Sleep. I realize you're in Don't Sleep.
Yeah, it's all the same musicians that are in Don't Sleep. It's
nice.
Just Dave Smalley sings for that band. Yeah, so we were and before that we had a band called Very Americans, which was with a kind of different style, a little bit more like, I'd say, indie rockish band. So the four of us, prior to working with Popeye, had played in a handful of bands together, and kind of we know each. We kind of write we know how to write well with each other, and we're all very close friends. So it was like, but we were in sort of a lull with Don't Sleep. We had some downtime, and we were thinking like, kind of it'd be cool to go in a slightly different direction with another project. And so we did start writing music and we had some songs sort of in our pockets before we roped Popeye into joining our traveling. So, so we're all tight. We all live in the same, we all live in Harrisburg. So we get together regularly to write and practice, and it's a small town. So it's very kind of a simple life. So we have plenty of time to, make music and do our thing. So yeah, just Popeye fit in perfectly, like slid right into the band, and we all love him, and he's been just like perfect puzzle piece to the band.
The whole that's so interesting, because by what it sounds like, I mean, like for you, Garrett, it sounds like you guys would have, whether it was calling hours or not, it sounds like something would have happened with that project. Like you guys probably would have formed a band. But Popeye, it also doesn't sound like you were really actively looking for a band. I mean, were you? It sounds like if this didn't approach itself, you weren't gonna just go find 4 other guys and get something else going, by the sounds of it.
No, I had no plans to do that. I would occasionally play a solo acoustic show here and there if someone was dumb enough to ask me to do it. And then, I wasn't really thinking about anything beyond that. I was just thinking this one show with these guys would be fun, and then all hell broke loose, and then I made 4 lifelong friends, and I'm having a blast making music with these guys. So it's been a great ride, and so we're still just kind of riding that wave.
Yeah, this whole band, I feel like it's just like a series of like just happy accidents it's like, oh, we happened to play this, weird kind of cover show with Popeye and befriended him. And then it's like, oh, Brian McTernan, it turns out, is like a huge Popeye fan, and just in a passing conversation with him, I mentioned we were writing songs with him, and he's like, I'm going to produce that. We need to get together now and write music. And then it's like, oh, we demoed some songs, and Jordan from Revelation heard it, and he wants to put out our first record. We've never played a show, but we've got our all-time favorite record label, the most, probably the label that's, one of the most influential on us, wants to put out our record. And then like before our record was even out, we get to go. We went on tour to Europe for 2 weeks as friends. For us. Like,
I still
we
can't
didn't
believe
have a
that
record
happened.
out yet. We went on tour to Europe last fall. So it was like, everything has just kind of fallen into place in an amazing way. And we feel it's not lost on us how lucky we've been to do what we've done, in a very short time.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, like you bring that up too, because like I had a question written down, and it was kind of more like towards the end of it, or like towards like the end of my questions, but kind of like, with bands, I sometimes feel like people do have goals. Like, and I don't know if goals is the right word, but like you do. There's things you want to accomplish with the band. There's things you like to do, and other people kind of go with the flow. I mean, it doesn't sound like you guys started this like that. Like you're not like, all right, so we got to sign to this label. We need to have this sound. We need to work for this producer. It sounds like none of that was in mind. It sounds like nothing was forced on this. Like everything just sounds like it's kind of just working. I mean,
yeah, I think, I mean, we're all in our 40s and 50s. Like, we're not planning on going on long tours or anything like that. If we have certain opportunities, we're gonna take them. But at the same time, like, no, that we're not like dudes in our 20s that are like, yeah, we're gonna take over the world and be the biggest band ever. It's like, no, nobody wants that. We're thinking about playing shows, recording records that we like, eating good food, and potentially do some traveling. So I guess if there were to be goals, it would be that. But for the most part, we're all happy when it's over, and we're just like, all right, I'm going to go home and feed the animals and get back to work tomorrow, and But no, I remember us having that conversation. Like, to be clear, like, nobody wants to go on like long tours, right? No, nobody wants to do any of that. So yeah, things are like, I think Garrett referring to it all as a lot of happy accidents is very accurate,
Not,
I would say.
not forcing things, I don't feel like is a bad thing. I think most of the times that's where the best stuff comes from. It's just kind of like all falls into place. You're not trying to be like, we got to be the best band on Revelation Records. We need to be the best selling and this and that. You know, sounds like let's make.
We want to be the best calling hours. That's all we can. That's all we can do.
All calling hours.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, screw all those other calling hours bands. We're going to be the best calling hours.
I didn't want to talk about it. I know a little bit. We were talking a little bit before recording here, but you know, as you said, Garrett, you know, you guys are up in Harrisburg, and then Popeye, you're down in Scranton. How is that worked? I mean, like for I guess people who don't know proximity and stuff. I mean, has it been easy to get together? I assume too, Garrett, for you guys, if you're all in there, even if Popeye can't be there, I assume the band can still kind of rehearse and practice. I mean, has that been an issue at all, being, you know, in two different places, or at this point in 2024, is that not really an issue to have, you know, a band member an hour or so away?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, even the way we've always been, you know, this is our third, and I say the musicians, Popeye's actually, you know, a better musician than many of us in the band, but like,
stop it.
The non-singers, we've always sort of written collaboratively. We're not the kind of band where someone just brings a finished song and says, you know, here, this is going to be our next song. It's normally, you know, our one guitarist writes a riff and we kind of jam on it. And then we find you know, that turns into a verse, and then we work a chorus into it and just kind of put the song together that way. So that's how we've always written, is sort of in a room together. And although we've sort of changed that, now we've worked it out so that our drummer the guitarists write the songs with a drum machine, and then we send it to our drummer, who literally lives 10 minutes from us, and then he writes the drums to it. And you know, it's good for him because he doesn't have to sit there on his drum throne watching us noodle around on the guitars for like an hour, you know, while he's like, okay, are you guys done yet? And honestly, it's kind of good for us because our hearing he's one of the hardest hitting drummers that you'll ever experience. And you know, like writing with him for 3 or 4 hours straight, it's like you want to die at the end of it. So it's you know, it was his idea to do it this way, and he was right. Like it's just a really great way to write. So, you know, then we can send the songs to Popeye, and he can work out the lyrics and figure out his vocals and the melodies, and you know, it's a cool way to write. It's fun, you know. There's not a lot of pressure, and then like once the song is sort of done in quotation marks, then once we start working with Brian McTernan, it's like he kind of takes it and just makes it better, you know. So that's the beauty of working with a producer that you really trust.
For you, Popeye, like that kind of songwriting process where, like, you know, they write the songs and then you kind of you take your take on it, they send you the music like that. How's that compare to like writing in like Farside? I mean, is that totally different? Is that somewhat similar? You know, and really just any bands you've been in. I mean, have you done it like this before, where it's kind of like, here's the music, like, you know, lyrics, melody, all that, here, take, you know.
Now for a bit, like there have been like projects where someone has said, like, hey, I did this song, like, you want to sing some backups, here it is, come up with something, and maybe I'll just record it at home. But for a band, no, this is like nothing I've ever done. Because because it is different. Like when you're all in the same room together, you can kind of feel each other out, and you can try to connect with each other a little bit, and you can get feedback. But when you're just sitting at your desk with your headphones on and with a notepad, and like with every idea that's coming into my head, every lyric that I'm writing, I'm agonizing over it way more than I did with any other band I was in before, because I'm like, I really don't know if this is going to be any good, if the other guys are going to like it or not. I mean, that's always been my attitude with anything that I did, but then at that point you just kind of show up and it's like, all right, guys, let's do this. If it sucks, we'll go back to the drawing board. But otherwise, it's just kind of, you know, me like anxiously waiting for that final version of the basement demo that our drummer Jim is going to send us, and just like, and then you obsess over it and you listen to it and you know, try to come up with any idea that you can and throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. So it is an entirely new creative process in that regard. The other thing is we should just make this a podcast about Brian McTernan, because we're already talking about him a lot, but it's only because we love him so dearly as a human being and as a producer. But that was another really, really interesting way to go about it, is that when we started demoing the songs for the Calling Hours record, Brian didn't want to hear anything beforehand. Really? And so we just showed up, and the other guys would go into the tracking room and do a live recording, and then I would go in and do the lyrics, do the vocals, and then we would reconvene back in the control room, and we'd all listen back to it, and Brian would kind of lean back in his chair, and you can like visibly see the gears turning in his head, and he's like, okay, maybe this could be shorter, maybe this could be longer, maybe we need to throw in a breakdown here, let's find an appropriate time to mosh. And so we would come in with a lump of clay, and he would turn it into like a vase that we all thought was pretty. And so then we would go back in with the changes and do it again and do it again and do it again until all of us were satisfied with it. So all of this, every process with this band is a completely new experience for me.
That's kind of cool. That's kind of, I'm sure
it is.
Your feet or keeps you on your toes with that, you know?
Yeah.
Being a totally different, being a different kind of monster of like writing. Did you have, I know you mentioned earlier, you really hadn't like written lyrics in a while. Like, was there anything to kind of, you know, basically like, did you have to start fresh, or did you have any ideas that were kind of kicking around from even years ago that you were able to kind of go back to for some things?
There might have been a few things, like once in a while, if I'm like vacuuming or folding laundry or doing the dishes, I might have something pop into my head, and then I'll make a note in my phone. So if I get stuck somewhere, I can be like, all right, you got stuff, like go back and, you know, what rhymes with kerfuffle? Nothing. Okay. But see if you can still try to work that into a song, but try to use the word kerfuffle in something. But otherwise, no, I don't know. I didn't spend a lot of time just like, I'm going to sit down and play my guitar for a little bit. Like, I just didn't really do that. It's been helpful to like kind of bring me out of that cave with these other guys, because they'll be like, here's a new song, write some stuff. Oh, okay, yeah, yes, sirs. I'm on it.
Time to get to work.
But like Garrett had kind of mentioned, like them trying to create like a sound that would work well with my vocals. That was something that I had to really work on. You know, being 53 years old now, I can't sing like I was in my 20s anymore. So don't try to hit those notes. Like, try to hit notes that are going to work for you and not give you a heart attack while you're trying to do it. So that was something I had to learn how to do, because that was always even when I was in my 20s, that was a terrible habit that I had. So I think it was good that it had been so many years since I had written any new material, that I got to just kind of start fresh with like, here's a new band, new group of guys. Don't just go back to the old feeding trough. Like, what can you come up with that you're going to be happy with and isn't going to get you kicked out of the band?
Do you work with, I mean, kind of just going off the fact that, like you're saying, like you hadn't written in a while, but then you have a project and it's like, okay, yeah, like I can write, time to write again. Do you feel like pressure kind of helps you with that? Like because it sounds like you're not an artist who's writing just every day. It doesn't sound like you're someone who's just writing to write. Does like that kind of, are you one of those people where more it turns on when it needs to? Like, can you kind of turn that on when it's time to make like a new album? Are you more like that than just writing every day?
Yeah, definitely. I don't have the energy to write every day. I have too much housework to do. I can't do that. But no, I've learned that about myself. Like no, I'd rather wait until the pressure gets turned up a little bit. Like, you got to write this, okay? And then you just kind of scribble things out, and then you work on them together as a band, and with your producer, and yeah, it feels good. It feels good to work on it together. And like Garrett also pointed out earlier, it's not like anybody shows up and says, "This is the song from beginning to end, and this is exactly how we're doing it." Like, we really, really enjoy the creative process of being able to work together. And somebody will say, "I don't really like that part so much," and it's like, okay, we don't get into fist fights about it. Like, we'll just kind of work on it together because we respect everybody else's creative input. So, so that's also good too. So that helps keep it loose, because you don't have to have everything be perfect when you show up.
Yeah, it has to be kind of nice to alleviate some of that pressure a little bit.
Yeah.
How about like for like recording the album? Because I mean, I know like you're obviously going to Brian the whole time and like working on these songs, crafting them and stuff. But like, what was like the recording sessions for like this? Was this all kind of done in a sitting? Was this done kind of, you know what I mean, like a little broken up? You know, how'd the recording process for this album go? How'd that side of things go?
Well, so the demo sessions we did at a small studio in our town in actually Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. But the actual sessions for the album, we did the drums at a studio in Lidditz, Pennsylvania called Atrium Audio, and it's actually the studio that's in this huge campus called Rock Lidditz. And Rock Lidditz is this place where every big band, like huge band, like when Metallica is getting ready to go on a world tour, that's where they go and rehearse. And it's like an hour from our house. So they have basically this 1 million square foot warehouse where they can, like, the company that builds the stage comes in and sets up the stage, and the lighting company comes and sets up all the lighting, and the sound, the sound company comes and sets up the traveling PA system. And then the band rehearses there, and the techs all, they kind of run through their rehearsing their sets, and the guitar techs are grabbing the guitars, and they're basically, getting ready for tour. And like, Metallica, Lady Gaga, Justin Bieber, that's where they all rehearse for their tours. So, and there's actually a studio there as well. And so we know the guys who run the studio, and they have an incredible drum room there, and the sounds are amazing. So we tracked the drums there, and like a couple of days after we recorded there, I was talking to one of the guys who recorded us. I mean, one of the engineers, and he said that Justin Bieber had come in because he was rehearsing in the main area, and he just like popped into the studio, and he's like, "Hey man, do you mind if I just like tinker around a little bit?" And he basically just like right before his eyes wrote a song and recorded every instrument and recorded a song like right in front of him, and did all the vocals like on his own. So we anyway, that's Brian wanted to record there because he knew he could get really good drum sounds out of it. So we did the drums and kind of scratch tracks there, and then the guitars and the vocals we did just about this time. Brian he built a new studio in a home not far from his home. So I think we were probably the first to track in it.
Oh, nice.
I believe we were.
So, yeah. So we did all the guitars and vocals in there, and it was just a cool, like, we stayed in, he had rooms there. So we slept there, and we would hang out, it was very casual, just friends sitting around, and, you spend like 90% of your time just BSing, and then 10% like, all right, let's track. And then hopefully you get a good track, and then you start BSing again. And it was super natural, just like a good hang.
Yeah.
How was like the sequence? I always gotta like asking that, like, did everything kind of fall in place for like sequencing this? Everything flow really well? Like when you put, like, everything works together well on the record, but was that part of that side of things easy? People don't think about that sometimes. Sequencing is very important on release. That can really make things flow. The flow of something can make or break something.
I mean, it's funny because we're obviously old school. We definitely sequenced it. It's a 2-sided, 12-inch. It's 7 songs, so I don't know if we call it an EP or a LP, but it's a 12-inch, and so we definitely sequenced it, side 1 and side 2, which is not how people generally think about it. But literally, like, you feel like when you flip over to side 2, it's like a reset, So the song that's the beginning of side 2 sort of reminds me of the song that's the beginning of side 1, and it's kind of like you're starting the journey over again. And so I don't think there was a lot of like, I think the sequencing was we all kind of agreed really easily, and I'm happy. I wouldn't change anything about the sequencing.
I don't recall there being any major arm wrestling over the song order on that record.
Yeah, the cover was kind of like doing the replacement song was that was sort of because we
arm wrestled over for a long time. We had like 100 different ideas for like, what about this song? What about this song? What about this song? And so,
well, yeah, coming up with agreeing on a cover song is virtually impossible. Well, then,
yes.
Then at the end we tacked on that spoken word thing you did at the end of the second side. That was kind of that happened.
Yeah, that was so we were in. By the way, this like Anthony. I don't know if you noticed this, and I know this is not a visual podcast by any means, but when you asked about tracking the record, I was like feverishly pointing at Garrett, like, you answer this, because I did not go to those recording sessions because it was I wasn't able to go, and then afterwards they were telling all these stories about like, oh yeah, this is where Metallica and Justin Bieber, and there was a hotel, and I'm like, great, I couldn't make it, but then we went to Baltimore to track vocals at Brian's place, and it was like a new studio that he built, and so we went there and we just spent a couple of days tracking the vocals, and I do voiceovers.
Oh, really?
And yes, and I had been doing it for a very long time, and I'd forgotten to tell my agent that I was going to go out of town for a couple of days, and so she sent me an audition notice, and I'm like, shit, what the hell am I supposed to do? I feel really bad. And then me, being the dope that I am, eventually realized, oh wait, you're in a recording studio, huh? You could do this. And so so we had some downtime, and I went to Brian and I said, hey, if this is inconvenient, I'm sorry, but is there any way I could record like a quick voiceover for like some video game? It's just kind of a short monologue kind of thing. And he's like, yeah, I've never recorded a voiceover, but sure. And so we knocked that out, and it was this really like dark, brooding monologue kind of thing. And everyone was like,
it was like a noir detective thing.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Something like that. I don't even know what game it was for. But then everyone's like, hey, that sounds really cool. Maybe we could put that as a bonus track or something. And then Tom said, hey, I actually have an acoustic guitar thing, like almost like a classical guitar thing that he had recorded and didn't have any use for. So then Brian mixed that together, and so we put it as a bonus track at the end of the vinyl release. But then what's even cooler about that is that months later, Brian is working on the new Hot Water music record, and they had this song that had kind of a really long breakdown, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And then Brian said to the Hot Water music guys, hey, so we did this on the Calling Hours record. What would you think about Popeye like doing something similar in this breakdown for this song? And he played him the one that we did, and they were like, yeah. And so they sent me a script, and I recorded it at home and sent it back to him. So so that was a massive honor for me to be able to be on the Hot Water music record, talking about like walking around in the woods and some stuff, I
didn't realize you were on the record. That's a good record too.
Yeah, I'm in there. Shoot, what's the name of the song? It's the I Want My Money Back. Like, great banger of a song.
Now we got to play that on the radio show after this for people listening on the radio side.
I love the song.
We're playing that. If we're playing a Hot Water music song tonight, we're definitely playing that one.
Yeah, it wasn't like some throwaway like funk metal jam kind of thing. Like, it was like it's a really good song. I'm like, are you guys sure you want me on this? And they're like, yep. And I was like, okay.
That's kind of, I did not realize that about like voiceover. How did you kind of get into that world? That's kind of it. Would you have a great voice? I feel like totally makes sense. But how did you kind of get into that whole world of voiceover acting?
I knew some people that were actors and voice actors, and a couple of them would say, hey, you have a nice voice. Have you ever thought about like getting into voiceovers? And I was like, I don't know. so I just started taking classes and fell in love with it immediately. And it's gradual, just like anything else you do. Like you take a lot of classes, you learn how to do what you're doing. And I was already comfortable being in front of a microphone in a recording studio, so that wasn't an issue. And record some demos and do some hustling, get an agent, start auditioning, and eventually start making some money.
That's really cool.
Done commercials for radio and television, done a lot of video games because I'm typically the loudest guy in the room. And I credit that to like all the decades I've been singing for punk rock bands. That I shouldn't say, well, that's it. It's just that easy. But no, it takes a while to like get to a place, and you do a lot of, just like being a musician, you start at the bottom and you're not going to get paid for a while, but eventually you'll start getting paid, and then people will say, oh yeah, we got this other job. Do you want to do that? We have another job. Do you want to do that? A lot of it was doing, like a villain or a military guy or some sort of Middle Ages warrior running around with a sword, like cutting people up, like that kind of stuff. Because it's a lot of yelling and screaming for video games, which I enjoy.
Do you like feel, and I guess off the top of my head, I mean, you tell me, but like, was there anything you could take from singing to apply to that? One being dynamics. I feel like you'd probably be able to control your voice a little better from being a singer prior to that. But I mean, is there anything you think actively that you kind of can pull from singing, obviously for decades, and then take into a voice acting?
Well, yeah, just like you said, understanding dynamics is one thing for sure. But as I also had just kind of mentioned a minute ago, like being comfortable in a recording studio, understanding the lingo and the terminology. The microphone is your friend. Don't fear the microphone. The microphone is your friend. And also applicable to both. Do not be afraid of looking like a fool. Like you got to swing for the fences, every audition, every job, just like playing a show, going into the recording studio with a band, like you have to go for it. Don't hold back.
Kind of weird, but vice versa. Is there anything you feel like you've picked up since you started doing voice narration that you kind of bring into singing? I mean, I feel like less probably translates that way, but I mean, is there anything you feel like it's translated?
Absolutely. With calling hours for sure, because as we touched upon earlier, like learning how to, like, don't try to sing like you're in your 20s, because you are not in your 20s and you don't have the stamina. As we know, like your voice just starts to get lower and lower as you age. It's just part of the aging process. Also, decades of smoking cigarettes probably didn't help much either. But there was something that I definitely had to learn with calling hours, and especially when we went on that first European tour with As Friends Rust. And the other guys were like, dude, you don't have to like completely blow your load in the first song. Like, we're doing 9 shows in a row on this tour. Like, you need to like maybe calm down a little bit and just, you can conserve your voice.
This is a family podcast, so you want to rephrase the whole blow your load thing.
But that could mean anything.
I feel like it'll pass through the FCC censors. I feel like it'll be okay.
So yeah, it took like, I think it wasn't until like maybe the 3rd show of that tour where I finally was like, okay, you don't have to go to 11 on for every note for every song, like we were talking about with dynamics. Like, you can bring it down, hit the note, but you don't have to give yourself a coronary in the process. So yeah, there was definitely stuff from voiceovers that I was able to translate into doing music. Because if you're doing a video game session where you're yelling and screaming for 4 hours, like that's gonna have a little wear and tear.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. No, it is. It's interesting. The like back and forth on those things. I mean, both obviously you're using your voice and everything. But yeah, that's kind of cool to see the similarities in both. Do you like I was kind of wondering too, with both of you being in two different places, and Popeye, I'm not sure. I don't know how long you've been in Scranton, but probably not as long as Garrett. You've been in Harrisburg, but like, what about the local music scenes where both of you are at? I mean, I feel like Garrett, including you, got to be ingrained a little bit in the music scene going around there. Like, I'd be interested in both because I really don't know. I know bands of Scranton. There's a lot of great punk bands that have kind of come out, like the Menzingers and Tiger's Jaw, all that kind of stuff. But like, what's the music scene like in Harrisburg? What's like in Scranton? Are there venues, are there bands to play with, you know? And Popeye, again, I don't know how much you've kind of ventured out and kind of gotten into the scene there since moving there, but you know, I'd be interested in kind of hearing about both of those places.
Yeah, Harrisburg, you know, it's I would say the music scene's okay. You know, there's a handful of really good bands and there's a handful of really good venues. What I've noticed, and this is just like a recency bias thing, it seems like we actually have a lot of touring bands that come through Harrisburg now because there's some very like good solidified promoters in our town, and there's some like steady venues now that are so we're getting a lot of good bands coming through. But the interesting thing is, on a lot of these tours, they don't want a local band playing on the show. So it'll be like a tour package of say one or two or three bands. And then the promoter, we'll run the promoter and be like, hey, we'd be cool if we can open the show. And they're like, yeah, no, like they've already requested no, or required that there not be any local bands, on the bill. So, which is, I don't know if it's a new thing, and I'm not really. Well, our guitarist Tony actually used to run an all ages venue for years, like kind of a punk venue, and so he has a better perspective on this. And he, we've talked about it a lot, and it's just a new. I don't know why bands do it, but they'll just say, which I guess it's when I look at it, from like a different perspective, like. What a great opportunity as a local up and coming band to get on a bill, opening up for like, a big draw touring band, even if there's only half the people are there, when the first band plays, like it's a good opportunity to kind of, play in front of new people and get your chops going. The only thing I can imagine is like from the touring band's perspective, like they want to keep the show relatively short. The date, it seems like shows are ending a lot earlier than they used to before COVID. It used to feel like shows routinely went, till midnight or sometimes later before COVID. And now it seems like they're ending a lot earlier. I don't know if that's just like venues don't have enough people to work that late, or it's just the general, things have just sort of changed and people don't like working as late, or the bands don't want to be there that late. So I think, maybe they're trying to keep the sets shorter so they don't want extra bands on. But I'd say that's my only, like, we're getting more and more. We're getting a lot of shows in Harrisburg of like touring bands, but not a lot of opportunities for local bands. But there are some cool. There's a DIY venue called Little Amps. It's a coffee shop that the owner's really cool. Loves. He's like a music guy, and he basically just like after the coffee shop closes, he lets shows happen there.
Nice.
Doesn't take anything. It's basically like pay. There's a jar at the door, and people throw in whatever they feel like throwing in, and he's got a couple baristas working at the time, and it's cool. It's great. So that's cool. And there's a venue called HMAC, which does a lot of music, has a lot of shows. That's good. So I would say, there's some, our scene is not the strongest it's ever been, but, it ebbs and flows. And I also have to sometimes laugh. Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of bands that I just don't know, but, like 19-year-old kids who are doing something really cool in a basement somewhere, and like their friends are there watching them, and it just doesn't get to me because I could be their dad, So like sometimes when I start to have a perspective on this, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally, even though I think I'm like dialed in, I'm not. There's all kinds of cool stuff I'm sure that's happening I just don't ever hear about.
I remember talking about that. I think it was Travis from Piebald. We were both talking about that, where it doesn't, I'm with you, where it's like, even if I don't know what's going on, I want to know that like everywhere out there on a Thursday night in a college town, like somewhere in a basement, there's like 30 or 40 kids losing their mind to like just their friend's band. Like maybe totally. I don't know it's there. Maybe I'm not there, but I just want to know that like on a weeknight somewhere, like people are having a very illegal, loud, like punk show in a residential area somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure that's happening.
And I think you do bring up, I hadn't really thought of that, but I think you do bring up a point, I mean, including for where I'm at, where, yeah, shows do seem to end earlier. Now, I didn't really think of that till you just brought it up, but I just saw X the other night, and that was done by, like, I think 10. And the last other few shows I've seen, yeah, you're out of there by 10:30, never later than that.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing. You know,
I, for one, have no problem with that.
No. Like, when we had that band Very Americans, we played a fair number of shows, and sometimes the show wouldn't be over till we wouldn't play till like midnight, so I'd tell friends or like relatives, hey, my band's playing this weekend. They'd come and check it out, and I'd see them leaving before we even played. And I'm sure they were like, babysitter, we need to get home to let the babysitter go home. Like, we're tired. We have to go to work tomorrow. This is exhausting. We're already drunk, because we've been there so many hours. So like, yeah, earlier shows, I have no complaints about that. No one minds that.
No, me neither. For you, Popeye, have you had a chance to kind of check out the local music scene down there? Not really.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in Scranton for about 7 years, a little over 7 years.
Okay,
a little while. But the kind of similar to what Garrett was talking about. Like, there are some venues, but nothing like the HMAC, which is a really great venue. There are currently less places than there are now for bands to play. I don't know if necessarily COVID had anything to do with that. In fact, I know for a fact that there were a couple of cool small venues, but they closed not because of the pandemic. And I've asked around, like, other hardcore people, like, what happened? Because I remember, like, in the 90s, like, Northeastern Pennsylvania, like, you had to play there. You couldn't not play there if you were a touring band. And these guys just said, yeah, the scene just kind of died out. And there are plenty of musicians there, and there are plenty of bands, but a lot of them are like tribute bands, and you don't really get many touring bands that come through there really ever anymore. Or again, like Garrett was mentioning, like, being older, I absolutely would not claim to have the pulse on what's going on. But once in a while, a friend will hit me up and say, hey, this band's coming through and they're playing. And it's like, I never heard of them, but yeah, I'll come hang out and play. I know Wilkes-Barre has a scene, and they've got like some younger hardcore bands. And they're just doing their thing, basement shows and wherever the heck you could play, community centers, and that's how it all kind of starts. But there isn't really like a and you mentioned the Mensingers, like, they haven't lived in Scranton for
it's been a while, right?
Long time. Yeah, Tiger Jaw, I know they played at a big hall, but as far as I don't know those guys, so I don't even know if they live there anymore either.
I don't think so. I feel like Philadelphia takes a lot of art. Seems like a lot of them end up in Philly later on. Sure.
No, and understandably, I mean, I like Scranton a lot, but why would you stay there if you didn't have to? So there's still plenty of stuff that happens, but as far as like hardcore and punk, not that much, as far as I can tell.
There's been stronger time. There's probably been stronger eras.
That's what I have been told. My sources have told me that's what's going on. Yeah.
I mean, it just happened again. Like I was telling you guys, I mean, I'm in Jamestown and Buffalo, Erie. All those are like 90 minutes away. So it just happens, bands from around, if you move, you sometimes you end up moving in those cities near, just kind of happens sometimes. But
yeah.
You got calling hours. They still got. I feel like you can.
Got that.
I feel like you can both be claimed by Harrisburg and Scranton. I feel like you can be claimed by both places until you guys sell out and the whole band moves to Philly.
Yeah.
How about just a couple more here for you guys. I blast talking to you both. How about like the whole? You brought it up a little bit earlier, but like with the Revelation, because obviously, I mean, Farside was on Revelation Records. I mean, you're Popeye. You've had a history with them and everything, but yeah, how did all of that just come into play? Did you just say they kind of got a hold of you, and then you guys kind of went from there?
Kind of. Well, Jordan Cooper has become one of my very, very best friends over the years. In the time that Farside was on Revelation, and he and I have just like we've just remained really, really good friends, and we speak often. And I sent him some demos, and I was like, "Hey, dude, let me know what you think." And then he eventually got back to us and said, "Yeah, you guys want to do something together?" And it was like a no-brainer, like for me at least, because I had a wonderful experience being on Revelation, and Jordan's one of the most solid people I've ever known. And then when he mentioned that he wanted to work with us, I texted the other guys and I said, "Hey, I know I didn't agree to any of this, but would you guys be interested in doing a record with Revelation?" And like immediately everybody wrote back and said, "Yes, absolutely. Let's do it." And so there wasn't any kind of long process where we had to sit down and have negotiations or anything like that. Like I just kind of threw it out there because, and I could vouch for Jordan and say he is always going to be a solid individual. He's never going to bullshit you about anything. He's not an industry type. He's not a player. The contract is like barely a page and a half, and it's like, here it is. And we were like, yeah, it sounds great. And so, yeah, they've been great to work with. And Sammy Siegler, who does a lot of work with them as well, has been great to work with. And he's helped us out with a bunch of stuff as well. And everybody else at Revelation as well. So, and I'm not just saying that because we're on a podcast. I'm saying that because it's true. Like we've all been having a really, really great experience. And, yeah, they're pulling for us for sure. So, yeah, it was really just one friend reaching out to another and saying, "Hey, here's my new band. Let me know what you think." And
it's a good sign for the label too when you want to work with them again throughout the year. Because also the stuff you've done with Jeff Caudill, right? That was on Revelation 2, right?
Yeah, we did the one Your Favorite Trainwreck record. That was like a joint effort between Revelation and Jeff's label, Fortunate Son.
Oh, okay.
So they kind of released it together.
But yeah, that's still that, like, because yeah, sometimes you see bands, release an album or two on a label, and it doesn't seem like they ever really have much of a relationship later on. So I think it speaks when, like, hey, guy who's been on through the decades, let's release something else on there. Which also sounds like one of the easiest band signings in the world. It wasn't, we got 50 rejections till we got our first. It doesn't sound like that happened. Which I love. It sounds the whole band like talking to you guys. I love the whole inception of this band and how easygoing everything sounds.
Yeah, another happy accident, I suppose. But
you're on a cool label, good shows, the album's good, and it's like none of it seems forced at all.
Yeah, thanks for the guilt. Thanks, bro.
Do you, for either of you guys, outside of calling hours? I mean, again, Garrett, you seem like you stay quite busy with music. I mean, anything else coming up, for the rest of the year from either of you? Yeah, calling hours or beyond. Anything else either of you have going on?
Yeah, calling hours. We've been busy this summer. Well, we did a tour in the late spring, early summer. We went to Europe on a short tour with the band Be Well, which is Brian McTernan's band. So we just got back from that.
Notice
the other Brian McTernan reference.
Yes, we just had to bring him in every angle, and then Brian McTernan did that. And we do have a handful of other. We have a New York show next week. We're playing in California in the end of the summer, and we have some other stuff planned for the fall. So we have a handful of shows coming up, and I'm sure there's some more things in the works right now. And we did just record some cover songs. Actually, we're in the we did the first tracks of some covers that we just decided that'd be fun to do that, and we actually worked because they were cover songs. We worked. We recorded in a studio in Philadelphia. With the guitarist for the band Hop Along.
Oh yeah, I know that band.
Yeah, Joe. He recorded some songs with them. Actually, Popeye's going down next week to do the vocals for them. So that was fun. We just were like, we did a Youth of Today song. We did a Cure song. We did a couple of other surprises I don't want to give away yet. But yeah, so I don't know what the exact plans are for them, but we just thought it'd be kind of fun just going and bang them out. So we're continuing to write music. We have probably half of a new record already demoed and, ready to track. Yeah. We just didn't want to do it too fast. The record, the Revelation record came out in November of last year. So we kind of wanted to give it a chance to, breathe and give people a chance to discover it. It's fun to notice, like, as we're playing shows every show, it seems like there's more people who are kind of singing along to the song. So it's neat to see that people are, discovering it and seem to be liking it a lot. So, I assume probably this time next year, we'll be talking about our next album. It's my hope.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome to see how busy, again, for something that's just full of like happy accents and just like, hey, let's like play together. A lot of great things have happened in a short amount of time. Like, I mean, it's cool to see the trajectory of the band,
Well, yeah. And to be fair, there are definitely plenty of people in this outfit who like want to be doing stuff. And so trust me, we are not sitting around like waiting for offers to come in. Like we're out there like trying to do stuff because ultimately we're musicians and we love our band. And so it's like, oh, we got an opportunity to do this, or why don't we just make an opportunity? Like with the cover songs that Garrett was just talking about, it's like, why not? If we can get some studio time for free or cheap, then let's go make some noise,
Yeah, I think, the cool thing with this band also is like we're at a point in our lives where this is all just like the cherry on top, like if we get an offer to go to Europe or play in Southern California for a few days or, play a cool show in New York City, like the answer is always going to be yes. And then we're going to figure out how to make it work,
Yeah, we say yes first.
Yeah, you say yes first, and then you say, oh shit, we said yes, now what are we going to do? But you figure it out because, I don't know, you just don't take anything for granted. And I'm not being morbid, but I'm just saying like the life of a band, people's like personal lives, we all have families and jobs and careers and stuff. And like at some point, someone may not be able to do something. So you want to take advantage of every great opportunity. It's like any offer that comes in, the first question is like, will it be cool? If the answer is, will it be cool / fun? And if the answer is yes, then it's like, all right, let's do it. Let's say yes. And then let's figure out the logistics. So, we try to do everything we can because it's just such a pleasure. And obviously, we're not doing this for a living, obviously, or else we'd be probably living on the streets right now. But, the bands that are doing it for a living, like all respect to them, they've got to, make real like business decisions with every offer they get. But, we're in a kind of nice situation, at least for us, that if it's like fun / cool, we'll probably say yes, and then we'll figure it out.
Nice. I mean, and also, I also like, it's not like you're like sitting on your asses and these things just magically appear. I will say that like things are falling into place, but you're also putting in the work and effort. Yeah, it's not like you're just sitting there and someone just magically delivers you a song. Here you go, guys. Here's an album or anything like that.
Yeah.
Right.
But, shout out our guitarist, Tony Bavaria. He's like the band dad, kind of de facto manager. Like he runs our social media. Like he deals with all. Papa, I don't even know about like the inquiries that come in and, and like the show offers. He's really good at working through those. And then we have a friend, Tom Stevens, who lives in Tampa, old friend of ours who has helped as a booking agent. He's helped us get a lot of cool things too. So we have a nice little crew of people who, and, every once in a while, Rev will have opportunities for us that they hit us up about. So, it's like everyone's pitching in and doing their thing to make this feel seamless, but there's, a fair amount of work that goes into being an active
There's still moving parts. There's still moving parts there.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, great talking to both you guys. We will, including for those on the radio show, we'll play you tons and tons off the record. But you want to tell everybody where we can grab the record. You want to tell us where you can find you guys online. Also, if you want to plug Garrett, I mean, your other bands, like anything and everything you guys are doing. Where do we find it all? Where do we find it online? Plug away, promote away.
Social media. So it's at Calling Hours Music on Instagram. You can definitely buy our vinyl at Rev HQ. And on our social media, you can see where we're playing next, and just see what we're up to. Don't Sleep. It's at Don't Sleep Band. If you want to check that out as well, and if you just want to say hi and message me, I'm Garrett.Rothman I don't have a lot of followers, so hey, a couple extra wouldn't hurt.
Give the man a follow. Give the man a follow. Popeye, any other besides the band? Do you have any other socials or anything else you want to tell people to go find you, or should we all stay away?
Oh no, you can find me. Otherwise, I got nothing. No, I have nothing to promote. But yeah, I'm available if you want to send me a message. Just go right ahead. I'm easy to find. Popeye Vogelsang. That's it. That's it.
You're an easy one. If you're including on like Instagram, if you throw in Popeye, it's you.
It's probably me. Yeah.
Not a thousand Popeyes.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I'm savvy when it comes to social media or technology in general, but yeah, I like saying hi. Who doesn't like to say hi?
Popeye, I'm amazed everything you post. You have, I don't know how many relatives you have, but there's always some aunt or cousin
or a cousin
who's like commenting, "Oh, that's so you're playing in Berlin. That's great. Have a great
somewhere in rural Ohio," and they're like, "Oh, that's so cute."
There's so many of your crew out there, but
yeah, we're tight knit, man, for sure. Yeah. I would never say that I had a lack of support in my life as far as that's concerned. My own mother kind of knows what I do, but not necessarily. There was something posted where she has a calling hours record, and it's like sitting next to the television set in the living room, and somebody posted something about one of our records, and she messaged me, "Where can I get one of these?" And I said, "Why don't you sit down on the couch and then look slightly to your left, and you will see." Like, oh, that's good. She doesn't even have a turntable, but she just wanted an album. So yeah, that's the kind of support group I have. That's pretty awesome. Otherwise, no, just looking forward to playing more shows and recording more music with these guys. And yeah, as Garrett said, life can be a little uncertain as times, but we are absolutely making the most of it for sure.
I'm excited to see what you guys do next. Always excited for that. Anything else? I mean, did we miss anything? Anything else to let the good people know before we close this out and play some calling hours?
I don't think so.
We've said all that needs to be said.
I think everything's been summed up. Unless there's something you would like to talk about, I'm happy to talk.
No, I think
I can't. Okay. You're done. You're done with us. Okay.
Let's let the music do the talking.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea, Anthony. Thank you again so much for having us on. And,
yeah, we really appreciate it. You're great. You made it very easy. I think you helped us cover all the topics. So thank you.
Yes, you did.
For doing all the thinking for us.
We approve.
We'll have you guys back next release. We'll have you guys back on. We'll do it
anytime, my friend.
But I'm Anthony Merchant talking to Garrett and Popeye of Calling Hours. Go grab the new album Say Less, out now everywhere. And yeah, you're tuned into the Power Chord Hour.